Hi, Dr. Woodland here. Do I not sleep because of the pain, or does not sleeping make my pain worse? Let's become more aware together. Now, it's important to note that chronic pain and insomnia are classic bedmates. Up to 30% of people in the US have some sort of insomnia. About 20% of adults have some sort of chronic pain, while 7% have some sort of high impact pain. And 80% of those people with chronic pain have some sort of sleep problem, such as clinical insomnia. And with my patients, sleep is invariably a source of distress. So how do we fix both? So before we can fix pain and sleep together, it's important for you to understand how pain works in the brain. Pain is considered biopsychosocial in nature. What does that mean? Well, this means that your pain comes from more than just these biomedical or biomechanical approaches. Up to this point, you've likely gone to a lot of different providers to help with your pain and maybe your sleep as well. Now, with regards to pain, you've gone to things like medical doctors, of course, physical therapists, gotten injections, massages, chiropractor. Maybe you've done medications, of course, all in the effort of reducing or curing your pain. But the fact of the matter is that approach to pain is woefully incomplete. And the people who show up in my office, which are many, are those who have tried everything from a biomedical standpoint. The biomedical standpoint meaning like, well, my back hurts, and therefore there must be something wrong with my back, and there must be some sort of intervention that's going to fix my back, right? But the fact of the matter is that approach is incomplete. And the reason being is that pain is biopsychosocial in nature. It's not just biological in nature. Sure, there's biological components such as your injury history, your genetics, your stress system, your gut and how it digests food or medications. These things are a part of that. But again, it's not the whole story. It also includes psychological factors such as thoughts, feelings. It includes our expectations, our coping skills. It also includes social factors like how we're relating with those around us. It could be our relationships with friends, family, people from our community, from our church group, or maybe it's some other relationship that we have, work, for example. And all of these work together in this kind of dynamic interplay to produce kind of the big picture of your pain, okay? And this biopsychosocial model, again, pain is not just biological in nature, it's biopsychosocial in nature. And this biopsychosocial model is reflected as well in how we understand how chronic pain develops and is maintained. Now, it's important to note that innate in all of us is something that we have. It's called a pain alarm. Now, this is it's not like an alarm on your car, or not like your alarm that wakes you up in the morning talking about sleep. It's different, right? It's in your nervous system. And it's what it is. It's a nervous system response to stimuli in our environments. And the idea behind the pain alarm is to tell your body that you need to attend to some sort of acute pain response, right? And in these acute pain situations, for example, let's say putting your hand on a hot stove, the pain receptors in that hand are going to send these electrochemical messages up your hand, up your wrists, your arm, your shoulder, your spine, and then into your brain. And your brain is what interprets those pain signals and decides whether you're in pain. Your brain decides whether to turn off or on the pain alarm. Sometimes I like to tell my patients that it's as if your body is kind of asking this question, like, it's asking your brain, it's saying, hey brain, like, is this pain? And is this cause for an alarm? And guess what? Your brain gets to decide the answer, okay? Now, this is not to say that your pain is all in your head. Maybe you've heard that before. Maybe you've been told that before, or maybe you've been told by friends, family, even medical professionals that, well, you know what? There's nothing wrong with you, or there's nothing we can do. But the fact of the matter is that your pain is very real. But what's happened in the case of chronic pain is that after these repeated firings of this pain alarm, it becomes extra sensitive. It starts to go off even when there isn't an acute pain situation that needs your attention. Luckily, we have a good idea of things that trigger this pain alarm, and also things that can calm down the pain alarm. So let's talk about that. Now, things that trigger the pain alarm or set it off. There's a number of factors that can trigger this pain alarm activation. First, you've got stress. Have you ever noticed that when you're stressed out, or maybe your pain's worse, or maybe the opposite, that your pain causes stress? So pain and stress have what's called a bidirectional relationship, where they influence one another. And if you'd like to see a video more about how stress and pain are related, type in the comments below. I'd love to produce some content on that as well. Other areas that trigger the pain alarm that are related to psychological functioning in addition to stress are things like depression, anger, fear, anxiety. Also, our thought patterns influence that pain alarm. So, for example, employing unhelpful thoughts such as beating ourselves up, holding ourselves or other people to an impossible standard, for example. These are things that are going to influence that pain alarm. Also, there's factors that have to do with our body that influence our pain alarm. So, for example, we have moving too little, moving too much. These will do this. Often my patients have a hard time knowing how to manage their pace in life, vacillating between 0 and 100 miles an hour. And quite honestly, that's kind of how I operate naturally. But the fact of the matter when we have pain is that this roller coaster experience itself also triggers the pain alarm. I'll let you know it's something that I'm working on in terms of pace of life. But now, in addition to that, our diet can trigger our pain alarm. This is often a topic of great interest amongst my pain patients, and perhaps in the near future I'll also release a video that goes into more depth on the pain diet connection. Changes in weather also can trigger pain. And then finally we have sleep disruption. Okay, so we're here. So let's talk about why sleep influences our pain and how that works. And if you're still watching, and I know we're a little ways in now, I know you're ready to learn about what sleep has to do with pain. Really, understanding how pain and sleep interact lies in understanding first what sleep does for us. Now, while there's no complete consensus on why we sleep, we know, and I know that you know, that we need it, right? And that said, there are theories about sleep's purpose, including restoring and repairing cells and tissues, body temperature regulation, and the regulation of our metabolism. Looking at these areas a little more, we learn that all three of these factors can also influence pain. Now, I'll point out here that regarding repairing cells and tissues, we know that at night, during deep sleep, growth hormone is released to help that tissue regeneration and healing. But guess what? Most people with chronic pain are at a deep sleep deficit. So less deep sleep equals fewer tissues restored. One of the things that also happens at night is that inflammation systemically is typically increased. And this also can have an impact on our pain experience. Now let's look at the other way. Let's look at how pain influences our sleep. So we looked so far about how sleep influences pain, But let's look at the other way around. So in another video, I talked about the 3 pillars of sleep, which I'll just name here. I'd love for you to go back and check out that video about the 3 pillars. So these 3 pillars are our sleep drive, circadian rhythm, and our relaxation and arousal states. Now, regarding that 3rd pillar, so relaxation and arousal, this is an integral component of the pain-sleep connection. The pain alarm, when active, also activates our fight, flight, freeze response. Maybe you've heard of that. And so when we're in pain, it's almost as if, well, that our brain perceives some sort of threat to our safety. And guess what? The interesting thing is that if there's an imminent threat to our safety, I don't care how sleepy you are, you're not going to sleep. And it doesn't have to be a physical threat or something you fear. It could also be something good that heightens your nervous system. Now, I remember some years ago that I was looking forward to a new movie that was coming out. And I was super excited about it. Now, having little children, really the only practical time to go see that movie was on my own late at night. So I went and I enjoyed it. It was a great movie, but it was one of those big action movies. And it left me kind of on sensory overload. You know what? I got home probably, 11 o'clock at night or so. And I was sleepy. My sleep drive was high enough. But guess what? I did not sleep till like 3 in the morning. My mind was just playing over and over again all of the different scenarios of that movie that I saw, daydreaming. I wish it was night dreaming, but it was daydreaming about all the different ways that they could have taken the movie, right? And I wasn't sleeping. So what was going on there? And what goes on with us when we don't sleep with that as well is that when stress hormones get released, they are designed to block your sleep, okay? Sometimes I say, well, if you're being chased by a lion, you're not going to lay down and sleep, even if it's 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning, okay? And so this is an important piece as well to think about in regards to, okay, so if there's this pain experience, our fight or flight system is also active, our pain alarm is active, then that's going to naturally block sleep and we have an uphill battle. And this uphill battle is reflective also in what I like to call the negative sleep cycle. And I teach this a lot to my patients where maybe you start off with experiencing some pain. That leads to having like a bad night of sleep. Connected to that are our thoughts about sleep itself. And then we start employing these negative sleep thoughts. If you want to learn more about negative sleep thoughts, I also shared that in a recent video. Now, these negative sleep thoughts, they also keep our fight or flight system active, okay? And it happens during the night, but then also the next day, as we're maligning the night before, right? And throughout the day, we employ this pattern of thinking, okay? And then what happens is we have worsened mood during the day. Worsened mood during the day also can exacerbate pain during the day and can also maybe even help make us feel like we're behind the 8 ball in terms of things to do. We have more pressure, more stress. And then guess what? Night comes along. We have more pain simply because of systemic inflammation. But then guess what? Also, our systemic inflammation at night also influences those negative thoughts even further. More stress, more anxiety, and then worsened sleep again, leading to worsened pain, worsened mood, okay? Now, all of this is to say that it is possible to break through this. It is possible to break this negative sleep cycle, this pain sleep cycle. It's possible to improve both. I have seen it in patients, and I continue to see it in patients who are able to manage their pain more effectively, and even sometimes are even able to cure their insomnia. This is something that's possible. Now, how is this possible? It's possible when we, first of all, check all the boxes. So And I want to talk about some tips, but before I talk about tips, I want to talk about the role of another one of these boxes that's important to check from a medical standpoint as well, and that is obstructive sleep apnea, okay? Now, what is obstructive sleep apnea? You've probably heard of it. Maybe you've seen commercials for some devices out there to help with sleep apnea. Now, it's characterized, sometimes called OSA, it's characterized by frequent blockages in the airway during sleep. And this can involve snoring or not. I actually, as a child, had sleep apnea and I had a lot of snoring. But the result of these is that these blockages typically wake you up, and often many times a night. I've heard of patients who they've been awoken from their apneas maybe even several hundred times a night in some of those more severe cases. Now, with these increased wakings, and by the way, oftentimes you don't realize that you're waking up. Now, these increased wakings, they sap your deep sleep, and this just exacerbates your pain when you have chronic pain. You're not getting that restorative sleep. It becomes even less of an opportunity. And then pain and sleep apnea, insomnia, they become this vicious cycle in their own right. And when my patients have pain and sleep problems, I really like to encourage them to talk to their doctor about getting a sleep study if they haven't gotten one before, just to see if OSA is at play and if that's something that also needs to get treated. Now, let's talk about what to do about this. What do we do about all this information? Now, while what I'm going to tell you doesn't constitute personal medical advice for you, here are some things that I often discuss with my patients. Okay. First of all, you need to be intentional about managing both your pain and your sleep. You have to have a plan. That said, it's important to have a specific goal, okay? And, which do you feel more ready to tackle right now? That's usually where I will go with my patients as an entry point, and then we'll tackle the other thing as we go along. Now, if you're in pain, I tell my patients not to linger too long in bed. For some, let's say you're trying to go to bed and it doesn't work because you're in pain, it may just mean that you sit up in bed to signal to your brain that you're not trying to sleep at this moment. And then when you feel sleepy, lay back down. Also, investing in a comfortable mattress, using pillows effectively can help. Also, it's important to develop a relaxing pre-sleep routine and also having a relaxing get-up routine that typically involves gentle movement, right? So oftentimes our muscles are tight because they haven't been moving, and we're more prone to pain and tightness in those areas. And so one of the things that's important to think about is using movement as medicine, in particular in the morning. I think it's also something that can be helpful at night as well, okay? In addition to that, connected to that, I don't want my patients lingering too long in the morning, okay? From a pain perspective, getting moving and doing soft, gentle movements is important. But then also from a sleep perspective, if we're lingering in bed, then what's going to happen is that we're going to have a hard time in training our circadian rhythms to kind of know when to start our biological clock, okay? And so this is something that's also important for my patients. And then throughout the day, it's also important to prioritize gentle movement and aerobic activity. These are important to keep moving, as well as, when we do aerobic activity, that's going to influence our ability to get sleep as well more effectively. Research shows that when we have a daily exercise routine, and maybe it's just like 30 minutes a day of aerobic activity, it doesn't have to be super intense or strenuous activity, but the more that we prioritize movement and aerobic activity during the day, naturally it's going to improve our nights. Well, I appreciate you sticking with me today to talk about an important concept of how pain and sleep are related to one another. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. Hope you have a good day today, and hope you stay safe out there. Appreciate your time.